over here. And here's the YouTube. All right. Welcome, everybody. So glad you could join us for Jaws Coffee Chat with Amy Varley Live. Today, joining us for this special episode on Friday, June 30th, will be Tabitha Sullivan. We're so glad you joined us. We also have with us Jennifer A. Whitaker, as always. Well, before we get started, just want to give a special thanks to Lawrence Wingate of Wingate TV, Marcus Hart of Transform U Media, Zach Clayton of the PAC Channel, and Jay Stoyan of the Disability Channel. All these wonderful people share and replay our shows on their platforms. So we appreciate that very much. Be sure to like, subscribe, and connect with us on our social media pages and YouTube channel or wherever it is that you came across us. That'd be great. And now I'm just going to turn it over to Tabitha and Jennifer.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys having me on today. I look forward to lots of discussion.
Definitely. So let's get this started. So basically, if you will tell the listeners, so you tried Secret Direct products, and which one was it that you tried? And tell us about why did you feel you needed it?
Yeah.
And your experience with it.
Yeah. Well, it actually started a couple of years ago, how we traveled down this road and then got introduced to Secret. A couple of years ago, my daughter graduated from high school and she began to become very ill. She was already thin to begin with, but within a year's time period, she had lost about 25 pounds and now weighed about 85 pounds. Continued to get sick. We went to lots and lots of doctors, countless doctors with no real results. And then in November of last year, she became critically ill and was in the hospital and fighting to function. She had blood pressure 70/40. She couldn't walk. She couldn't see. She was struggling quite a bit. And after a week in the hospital, was discovered that she had a very rare autoimmune disease that was attacking her adrenal glands. She was not able to produce cortisol. You need cortisol to live. So this was very scary for us, very scary for her. Wasn't quite sure if she was going to make it. And the answers was to go on steroids every day, all day, the rest of her life. And that was how we were going to fix it. Unfortunately, we did that and it wasn't working. She wasn't getting better. She wasn't.
Well, and I was going to say, that's not surprising because like the way my doctors put it, is steroid is a temporary solution, say, while you're in physical therapy for an injury. And like, that's not even fair that whoever, whichever doctor wanted her to take steroids for the rest of her life, because it's basically asking her to be a drug addict.
Yeah, absolutely. It was not something I was okay with. I did not feel like this was an appropriate answer. Unfortunately, this is the only answer that the medical community has for this particular autoimmune issue, because apparently it changes or takes over for the adrenals and creates cortisol. But it wasn't okay for me. And I didn't want her to live her life like that. And really, she wasn't living. She was sleeping probably 23 hours a day, even on the steroids. She was not functioning. She had, I guess I would call discomfort from the top of her head all the way down to her toes. She could feel her hair. She could feel her cheekbones, her toes. She was miserable. If you came near her sometimes and barely touched her, she would jump out of her skin because she was in agony. And they couldn't resolve it. No matter how many times we went to the hospital for additional steroids, she was being pumped with them all the time. We had medical alert bracelets. We had emergency injectable steroids. We had everything you can think of, because the answer was, if she does not take these, then her body will not function. Her organs will shut down. She'll be in a coma, and then there's death. And that was the
Which
life that
that
we were.
I was going to say that didn't even sound hardly different than what you're describing that she's already going through, only awake and 1 hour of a day. That
Yeah,
practically is a coma already.
right.
So
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense.
right.
And
It was awful.
what's interesting is that they didn't act alarmed already with her sleeping 23 hours of a day and already not really having a life besides, I mean, maybe it's a slight stretch, but a vegetable.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And then
And we were,
you're talking about the cortisol. And see, I've been told that I have high cortisol, and I've read that can cause diabetes. It can be a sign of thyroid problems and
yeah.
all these other medical. Did they ever get down to anything like that to say possibly why her cortisol was high and
Well,
what it
actually,
could
her
be?
cortisol wasn't high. The problem is that she wasn't producing it at all. And so when your body's under a lot of stress, it deals with the stress by producing more and more cortisol, which is probably why a lot of people do have high cortisol. Well, eventually over time, sometimes your adrenals decide, okay, we're done with that. And now they don't produce at all. And so that's how it was explained to me, is just that maybe she had been in a high stress mode for a long time. Her body is now attacking her adrenals and she's no longer producing cortisol. So, after all the testing they did, that's what they found, is that she just wasn't able to produce it, and the steroids would go in and they would produce it for her. But unfortunately, it didn't help with anything. It didn't help with her ability to function throughout the day. It didn't wake her up. It didn't help her blood pressure. I mean, we were looking at a max blood pressure of 85 over maybe 52. And that was becoming her normal, even though she wasn't able to function that way. So to me, it
Did
wasn't.
they ever talk about there being an option of different types of brain surgery to fix the adrenals?
No. And, I did ask a lot of the doctors. She had 3 separate doctors give their opinion on her diagnosis. And I asked them about research. I said, I don't think steroids is an appropriate treatment for the rest of someone's life, because of obviously steroids can cause a lot of other havoc on the body. And I was told that is the research. That is the answer. That is the solution. There is no more research going on for this particular diagnosis. So, very disheartening. And, we were even looking at, sadly, they're now starting to use insulin pumps on these people, but instead of insulin, they're putting steroids in there. So rather than her taking pills all day long for, these steroids, it would just be continually pumping in steroids on a daily basis. And that's kind of where we were at. And I didn't know what her future was going to be. I didn't know if she was going to get better. It didn't seem like she was even getting, any relief from any of this. And,
It
that's
sounds like you or her probably felt a bit hopeless too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as a mom, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, it's like, well, what kind of life is your child going to live? I mean, here she just graduated high school. She had been an athlete in high school. She had gone to state for diving. She had been, seemingly healthy. And then all of a sudden this just kind of hits. And it makes you very scared for not just on a daily basis, but are they going to have a future, and what does that look like? And, texts in the middle of the night to where she's crying and needing help. And you don't know, is something wrong? Do you run in there? She had chest pains all the time. Is she having a heart attack? I don't know. And it's a very scary place to be as a mom. So, from there, we did feel hopeless. And I gotta say, there was times to where she'd have moments to where she could function a little bit, and I'd try and take her out of the house to do something. We happened to go to church on a Sunday, and I brought her with me. She was not doing well, but I was like, you can just sit there. We'll make sure you're okay. And Amy actually is part of the prayer team, and we went down, and I reached the end. I didn't know what else to do for her. And so we decided, okay, we're going to get you prayed for. And that's how I got connected to Amy.
Really? Because I was going to say, I'm not surprised that Amy's part of your prayer group.
Yeah.
Because I actually met her through my Bible study.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, we ended up, working together related to her book, and as we do with these shows and her different supplements and stuff that she talks about. But it was originally in a Bible study where we met. There was a lady named Lady Kendra that has a Bible study, and and she has other stuff like entrepreneurs networking that she calls entrepreneur networking, and other things like that. That's anyways one of those many things is where I met Amy, and we even went through a 90-day study together. And so I'm not at all surprised that the Amy I know is the one that prayed
Yeah.
and at least participated, if not led the prayer,
Yes.
and was praying for what's her first name? Your daughter?
Her name is Micah.
Micah. I was praying for Micah because that's the Amy I know.
Yes. Well, and
And it's a wonderful Amy.
I had, when you have a teenage daughter, I mean, she's 20, but when you have a daughter that's at that age, and I'm like, come on, we're going to get prayed for. She's like, no, mom, no, mom, no, mom, I don't want to go. She's nervous about it. And I said, I don't care. We're going. And I said, you can pick the person. You can pick who you want to pray. And she said, well, I want that girl with the cute sweater on. And so that's how we found Amy, because I let my 20-year-old pick who she was going to have pray for her. And Amy said, she prayed for us, and she said, there's a doctor that I work with, and I want you to meet him and talk to him and see what we can do. And
Dr.
that's really,
Cohn?
that's right. So we started talking to Dr. Cohn with Cohn Health Institute. And, when the medical community doesn't give you answers that you feel comfortable with, or that is even fixing the problem, you're willing to look outside of that. And I thought, you know what? Amy just prayed for us, and I'm gonna give this a shot, and I'm gonna see what happens, because we have nowhere else to go. I don't know where else to look as a mom to help her. And so he immediately, saw Micah and put her on his product, specifically a product called Recovery, which is a type of molecular hydrogen. That was, I think it was, we saw him maybe the end of January of this year. So she was diagnosed at the end of November, right after Thanksgiving, when she was in the hospital. And then we saw him the end of January. I will say that he said, hey, watch her. We kept her on the steroids because I was really nervous as a mom. They scared me. If I take her off, is she going to have organ failure? Is she going to go into a coma? Like, what's going to happen? And so we kept her on, and he said, you're going to notice some changes, and you're going to notice some functionality. And you decide when you want to start tapering her off of the steroids and make that decision. And that made me actually feel very comfortable, because it wasn't like, okay, take this and go off the steroids and you'll be fine. That didn't feel good. I will say February 17th was her last steroid. She is not in a coma. She is not in organ failure. We have not been back to the hospital for steroids or in a crisis. Her blood pressure is in normal range. It's over 100 every single day. And we were taking her blood pressure probably 4, 5, 6 times a day, every day, to watch and make sure that she wasn't getting worse. And now we don't ever really take it anymore. And if we do, it's over 100. She's functioning. She is going out with friends. She's asked me, like, hey, I want to get a job. Are you cool with me looking for a job? I mean, it's almost like she's completely recovered from, what she was going through, which isn't supposed to be possible. It isn't supposed to be possible that she could get off those steroids and that her adrenals start working again. And it's not supposed to be possible.
And it sounds like she may be somewhere near full recovery, to where she's more awake and active.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not necessarily physically active if she's, like, say, working on a computer or something, how a lot of us Americans are, but she's more involved in the community, and sounds like she spends a lot more time out of the house.
Yes.
Instead of being in bed.
Yeah.
And not just home.
Right. Yeah. She's going out with friends. She's gone dancing. She's going to jump parks with friends and babysitting kids. And I mean, this I didn't know if this was ever going to happen again. I mean, obviously when she was younger, she was active and thriving. And now, it's like that never even happened. And which has been amazing. And I love the fact that she's not on the steroids anymore. I will say that, right after we started seeing Dr. Cohn and started her on his products, we got a late blood test in from a previous doctor with another diagnosis, yet another one on top of the one she was already dealing with. And this same product, Recovery, that I've been giving her, one of his products, has completely cleared that as well. And, that one, I believe she contracted from all of the hospital stays that she had gotten, and because she hadn't been anywhere else. She'd basically been at home, and she'd been at hospitals, and she'd been at doctors, and
Did
so it's not just.
when she got this new diagnosis, did Dr. Crohn's increase how many recoveries he told her to take, or how did he, or did you just keep her taking the same amount longer?
Yep. We just kept her taking the same amount every day. And, it was one of those things to where, when the other doctor had called to tell us this new diagnosis that had come in late from her blood work, they offered to send us medication that is highly recommended on all the TV commercials. And I said, sure, send it our way. It takes months to get that medication in the mail, apparently insurance and also, oh yeah. So, I feel bad for people that are actually going to take it because they're not going to be treated for months, just because of insurance approvals. But in the meantime,
I went through something like that with, so I had brain surgery because I was one of the worst 30 cases of epilepsy in the country back in 2019 and 2020. And that's how I ended up in the research center in Houston.
Okay.
But because that's like the heart of all research, and like where they have the top doctors in the world are based out of Houston, Texas. That's why a lot of them don't even speak English because they're out of the world top.
Mhm.
Anyway, so of course, we went to Houston, and that's how we got that. But before it, what was it? Oh my God. What's my thought?
I will say, you think about that thought, but I will say this new diagnosis, I can't say the exact diagnosis that it was, but it is a virus that affects the liver. And typically you get that through, contract that through maybe injections or needles. And considering.
Oh, I remember.
Oh, go ahead.
It was the thing with the insurance approval
Yeah.
before brain surgery. I had to be on this certain medication. The procedures that was brand new that year, just FDA approved.
Yeah.
And I went through something very similar with the insurance. Remember you were talking about the battle to get them to cover some of the most expensive?
Yeah.
So it was something like 30 days of the medication was give or take $3,600.
Wow.
And we had to pay $150 out of pocket, which maybe you think we shouldn't complain compared to 3,600.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, when you're used to medications already being covered by insurance, and you go through all that battle, which often means you have to pay different fees to the doctors for different paperwork.
Yeah.
And other things that take time, so it's additional fees. And you get through all of that to then be paying $150 a month in co-payment alone, compared to like my other medications, maybe $1.82 for some for my 30-day supply, and others $10 a month. And then there's that one. So I went through something very similar, but God's blessing, my mom is an RN, a registered nurse. She works in the medical arena as a nurse, not a doctor. But with that specific doctor, she's the one that does exactly what she did for me, but she does it for his patients as her part of her professional job. So she already knew how to go about it. So with my process, with my end, the experience of trying to get the insurance to approve it, as it was basically a exception because I had failed all other medications. So
Oh,
since I had failed all the ones they cover, the doctor was able to, within a couple of weeks, the doctor sending certain stuff, certain documents or whatnot, to get the insurance to cover it.
yeah.
And but they said it'd be an exception coverage, meaning that only I could get that coverage because I failed everything else. Whereas anybody else, they have to use one of those something else's that are already covered and are more affordable to both you and me and the insurance.
Mhm.
So I'm familiar with that. And it was, I mean, I was having seizures like crazy while
Yeah.
she was doing all that. I mean, I could only imagine what you went through with it being your daughter that was having these different, episodes of some kind and practical comas. I mean, not literally, at least they wouldn't label it,
Right.
but while you're trying to fight, and it sounds like your process took longer to
Yeah.
fight.
And, my process as far as like getting the what the doctor wanted to prescribe for that diagnosis, um, my insurance pays in full, but you need a pre-approval. And strangely enough, the pre-approval took months. I mean, we literally, I'll tell you, I just got that medication in the mail last week. And we're talking, she was diagnosed in February. The blood test had been in January before
That
we.
is ridiculously crazy.
Yes,
Like, I would be
yes,
so disappointed if that
yes,
happened to me. You've got
right.
to be disappointed in the doctor or your insurance or somebody.
It's a whole system to me that kind of just fails because you've got people out there that are very sick and need certain things, and the timeliness of everything is just not there. And had we not been seeing him, this would be a different conversation. Had we not been seeing Dr. Cohn, this would be a different conversation. Had we not had his products, I don't know where we would be today, because I can tell you, at this point, we're not going to take the medication that was mailed to us. We don't need to, because they've done. I've had other blood
That
tests
is a
done.
cheers.
Yes,
God willingly that the answer to the prayer was you meeting Amy.
yes, hmm,
Because I think an angel told your daughter that Amy was the one.
yeah,
And then
absolutely,
all this came through
yep,
prayer and fellowship with another sister in Christ.
yep,
Because you
absolutely,
knew her. So as she got to know your daughter, if not you or both,
yeah,
she comes out with here's what I think can solve. And then it just works these wonders, right?
right, right,
And it's not just a normal lady trying to just pitch a sale, but this is somebody that actually knows enough, or at least the Dr. Crohn's that she works on behalf,
yeah.
actually
I think
do
that God.
something that traditional medication can't do.
Right. And God puts people on our path, I think, to be those angels and to help us when we're in need. And we were at the point with my daughter that I didn't know where else to turn. I didn't know what else to do. And there are life-saving things in the medical community, and I'm all for that, but there are some things to where I don't accept certain things. And like the steroids, they weren't helping her, and that's just not okay with me. And there was nowhere else that I felt that I could turn, and God provided me with Amy in my path, and then Dr. Cohn and what he has to offer, and how he's helping people all over the world with these products. And and my daughter is seemingly healthy today, and functioning like a normal 20-year-old would. And we're going to keep on it. And I'll tell you, I've got other stories of people that, because of my daughter, and because there's hope out there, and they see where she was and where she is now, that we've been able to help other people through our story. And that's my main goal, is to make sure that people know that there is hope. And sometimes we face really hard things in life, And to me, health is probably the most difficult out of every hardship that there is. And because if you don't have that, what do you have? And
Well, and I've got to agree with that because I've got 3 pages long of diagnosis, one per line. Like, you know how many lines you can fit on a typed up sheet of paper?
yeah,
And I have 3 pages long of diagnosis. I don't even know all of mine,
right,
but mine all have to do with the brain and it not working, whether it's psychologically, like mental health, or it's neurologically, like the physical aspect of the brain.
right,
Like with my autism, my best friend, who's a neuroscientist, basically goes to show me pictures of these radiology scans of the brain, and he shows me one that has bumps instead of the typical smooth oval kind of brain. And he said that this is the brain of someone with autism. And he said that's why there's skills and behaviors that many of them never can learn, but I did learn, like communication.
mhm,
And he said because they physically are missing parts of the brain. They don't have an entire brain. And that's why it's defined as neurological, even though Asperger's or autism in general, if not the high function, are typically treated under mental health because you got behavioral issues.
sure,
But it's something physically wrong with pieces of the brain missing. You see what I mean? Like it falls under one, but the other one treats it.
right, right,
And there's other things like that I have, but like I had a similar story with Amy, and mine had to do with neurological conditions. But I've never been like refined to a bed that sounds like your daughter had it a lot worse than I did. And I know that with the level I have that has so many conditions, so I spend basically Monday through Friday, I have 3 doctor's appointments per day. I mean, I have give or take 15 specialists and then my primary doctor. And I mean, I see a lot for all my conditions, but I've never been refined to a bed beyond when I did have one coma. And that was 7 days. And I thought that was the worst. So hearing what your daughter went through just breaks my heart because I thought I had it bad. And I think a lot of us that have depression or anxiety, because it sounds like what y'all went through of the fear of going out was like anxiety, social anxiety, or maybe some other kind of anxiety. But a lot of that kind of stuff, I feel like those certain mental health problems we get because of a already uncomfortable situation we're in with other medical stuff. And those medical things create fear or they create discouragement. And if discouragement isn't treated soon enough or coped with or something, it goes deep enough to be depression. Or
right,
nervousness goes far enough to be anxiety and similar.
right. It's like you start traveling down a road and it turns into a kind of a hole and gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And it starts small and then it starts multiplying. And
Well, and they say that's one symptom of depression is that you spiral down.
yeah,
You start going down and you start thinking negative thoughts about being hopeless. There's nothing I can do. I might as well give up. And there's other kinds of negative thoughts that are not fully fit to our reality. It's just that we're just so far hurt and disappointed
right,
that it just starts spiraling down to where we go deeper and deeper if we don't get help to get us started back in the upward motion.
right. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And when you're dealing with physical health issues and then it manifests into this depression and then it just goes down a road of helplessness and hopelessness. And I guess that's why it's important to me to be able to share her story, because people need to hear that there's hope. They need to hear that there's help out there, and there's people that are willing to help, and there's products out there that can help. And you can recover your life, and things can get better. And that's why I share what we've been through, and so that other people can know that it's not hopeless. You can
And I'm
come
just
out.
curious, now that she's back to, it seems back to what would be her prior normal self of social, wanting to work, all that kind of stuff, that's what we may say is normal. Is she still taking the recovery?
Yes, she is.
Okay, so y'all probably just going to keep her on it for good. Is that your plan?
Yeah, as of right now, I feel like it's not just, I don't want to be reactive all the time to health issues. I don't want to wait for something to pop up. And so now it's more of proactive. I want to make sure that we're maintaining a healthy lifestyle. There's several things throughout my household that we've actually done since she's gotten, a lot as her process got better and better. We've done things as a family with our entire diet, because I think once you start traveling down a road where you see health, you start changing other things. And so we've changed our diet to where we're eating much healthier. We went gluten-free. And we've seen substantial changes within even beyond what she was already experiencing health-wise by doing that. I know not everybody wants to do that or is going to do that, but we just felt like,
I'm with you on that. And there are plenty of people who are not like you and me,
yeah,
who will have health issues and they just don't even care what the doctor says, and they get mad at the doctor for telling them to eat healthy or telling them to exercise or some other kind of health that's meant that some kind of action to improve health, right?
right.
And like my best friend, like I was telling you, that's a neuroscientist, he says all these people come complaining to me about these health problems. I tell them what to do to fix it, and then they get mad at me for telling them to do whatever that they don't want to do, like exercise or eat healthy or something. And my mom, as an RN, has told me before that there's so many people who kind of take it for granted that they can just eat what they like.
Yeah.
And I even have friends who are in their 80s who say that all this healthy food stuff is all made up, and that it's just a fad, that there's, like you're saying, with the gluten-free. But personally, what works for me is gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free, soy-free.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what I needed, which was not just gluten-free.
Yeah.
And I later years after I started avoiding that, I found out my mom has similar experiences to me, but hers is dairy only, and my older sister's is dairy and gluten.
Yeah.
And we were kind of, as a family, going through that together. And you're right, it gave us better lives as far as like different discomforts that we had when we would consume those foods that we didn't know till we were an adult. And this became a thing in the last, maybe 5 or 10 years, about the big thing about gluten-free and dairy-free and other healthy options of being free of different certain popular ingredients.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, when we were trying to figure out what was wrong with my daughter when she was losing all the weight over the last couple of years, we had seen lots of doctors, done colonoscopies, endoscopies, biopsies, like all the things that you can think of. We were not getting any answers. Everything came back normal. They tested for gluten allergies, gluten sensitivity. Nope, all normal. Biopsies, all normal. Blood tests, normal. No answers. And, when we started taking Dr. Cohn's products, specifically recovery, and we started noticing the changes in her, we were able to take her off those steroids, do those things. And then we decided, okay, let's take it a step further. Let's change our diet. Let's change kind of our lifestyle as a family, not just her. But it was a moment to where it was like, okay, if one has to do it, we're all going to do it, because now we're going to all be on the healthy road together. And it's made a huge difference. I mean, I can tell you, we went through the entire kitchen. I have teenagers. I have a boy and a girl. And my husband, we all went through the pantry and the fridge and all of it, and got rid of all the stuff that had gluten in it. And then we went shopping together. And so it was a family participation. It's not a diet for us anymore. It is something that that's how we're going to live. And we do try and get as much organic fruits and vegetables as possible. I'm in co-ops to where I'm getting local produce. I have friends that actually have cattle, and I get local meat. So I try and do as much of that as possible and get things that are that are healthy for us in the house. And my kids can walk in anytime and eat, without being fear of gluten contamination, things like that. But I will say, after about a month of doing that, my daughter decided, well, I really want fast food with my friends. And she did that. Oh yeah, she did it. I mean, we're talking the slice of bread and the fried chicken and all the things.
No, something happened. I know it, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, probably within 15 to 30 minutes, super sick, stomach problems, pain all over. Like, this made her like just out. And she knew at that moment, oh, I do have a gluten problem. And I mean, it was there's no other
Isn't it
explanation.
amazing how many people have to learn the hard way?
Yes, yeah, it actually is. And you
I
know
mean,
what?
because it's not just with stuff like that that's, as you say, teenager, because she's 20, right? So at least
Yeah,
to you and me, that's still a kid, right?
right.
But it's even it's common I see in other arenas of life, like for example, when I was in my early 20s, I had an apartment, and I said, "You can't do anything to me if I don't pay the bill." Sure enough, they locked that door, and then they told me I had to pay to get my stuff out.
Right.
I
Yep.
mean, and there's other cases where it was like, a credit card, and I was like, "You can't do anything, so what?" And then I learned about credit and how many
Yes.
of us, I mean, that's an example that I think, since education doesn't include financial stuff like that, like the laws
Right.
related to, unless you're someone like me that studied accounting or finance, and even then, we don't usually study those parts of the law.
Right.
We study the parts that have to do with how to legally run a business that
Yeah.
does that certain service. So even then, we're not really learning it in the system, like the education. And there's so many things that our elderly, whether it's our parents, grandparents, whoever, can tell us, and we don't learn until we try it for ourselves.
Yes. Well, and I mean, she suffered immediate consequence. Here she'd been doing so good, and then you ramped it up, and she was even doing even better. And then all of a sudden, and now she wasn't sick like what she had been, of course, but she knew immediately. But what shocked me was she had all these tests done last year, and nobody said she had any problem with gluten. In fact, they told me she didn't have a problem. And now here we had direct consequences from eating gluten. And so now, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, now we know this isn't a diet. This is something that's lifelong. This has to be part of your health plan. And there's no cheating on it. I mean, when it comes to, I'll tell you, when it comes to gluten, it's kind of like you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant, right? You can't be in between. You're either gluten-free or you're not gluten-free. There's no cheat days,
It's
just
a
not.
black and white. It's a black
Yeah,
and white
it's very
picture.
black and white. You can't go back and forth. You can't say, okay, on Sunday I'm going to have this meal. It's all or nothing, and for the people that have that gluten problem, and so it just, now she's not going to do it again. But I will tell you, there are times, and you probably deal with this too, there's cross contamination. And that's a real thing for people that have, allergies, people with peanut allergies. If a peanut touches something,
Yeah.
people with, it's a real thing, that cross contamination. Sometimes you don't know that that's going to happen. You can plan to the best of your ability. But I will say what we've discovered is, because Dr. Cohn has a multitude of products. And, he mentioned, and Amy mentioned, hey, if that happens again, not her going out and like stuffing her face with a whole bunch of bad things, but if it happens to where she gets contaminated, and you notice it right away, try the probiotics. And I was like, okay, we'll try the probiotics. We've taken probiotics.
Oh, that's great. And
Yeah.
EJ, how are we doing on the time? I think we might need to carry on a second episode of this discussion.
We might. We've got we're at about 40 minutes right now.
Okay, so we have about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So what are some notes based off our full discussion that before we try to plan a date, Tabitha, that you could come back and we could carry on? Then what are some notes you want to leave listeners with, like I was thinking of, maybe something like how the supplements are not limited to medical things, like say the curve, what's it called? That helps people lose weight because it curbs their appetite, like as far as the
Ah,
size.
yeah. So he's got 14 different products, and we're kind of testing them out along the way too, just because, as you can see from my story, it's been life changing for us, and so we're on a journey to not just react to health problems, but to make sure that we don't have to deal with them to begin with. And so I will say, like you mentioned, Curb, it's to help with cravings and weight loss, things like that. I actually just got a bottle of that myself to see, how that works out. But that's called Curve, and that's one of his products. The most important product to me so far has been Recovery, and that's the molecular hydrogen. It's been life changing for us. I'm on it. I actually put my husband on it. My youngest daughter, who's 15, she's on it. And then obviously my 20-year-old is on it. My son hasn't started taking it yet, who's 18, but he may. He's got that product, the probiotics, which I had mentioned just a minute ago. When she does get cross-contamination, man, he said, hey, pop that in. First of all, it tastes amazing. You don't even need water with it, so she can take it on the go. And in case she ends up eating something, it cuts down the time of her recovery as far as getting back to normal after she's eaten something that she didn't realize was going to harm her. So those are big ones to me. Obviously he's got other ones that help with sleep, like Booster. We do take those at night, and it does help with aid in recovery and sleep.
And I was going to say, and the one called, is it Immunex?
Yep.
That is probably a big one for people that have dealt with COVID or want to strengthen their immune system to resist COVID.
Yes.
And possibly other sicknesses too. But you know how, like, so to say the pandemic is over, we moved on, but the virus is still out there. It's just not hot news anymore. So we no longer see it on the news saying,
Right.
well, this many are, dying of it, or, the death count or the percentage of the spread. The reality is it's everywhere around us because it never died just because we moved
Well,
past that point in history.
and
So-
So I say the Immunex is great for modern day if you're worried about those.
Proactive. Yeah, you want to be proactive with your health. You don't know who you're going to come in contact with or what you're coming in contact with. So even beyond COVID, I mean, there's lots of things that are going on, especially around kids. And if you work around kids or if you're around kids, they spread germs like crazy. Right. And so this Immunex is going to be there to strengthen your immune system, because I promise you, being proactive with your health is much better than being reactive. And unfortunately, a lot of us are having to be reactive and try and fix the problems that are already there. And I've just kind of changed my mindset and trying to help build the immune system and make sure we've got things in place to help live in the world that does have all these things going on around us. And, you can only control so many things. And
so if people want to find out more about this, where can they go?
Yeah, they can actually go to our site, secretdirect.com/Amy Varley. So it's secret is SEACRET direct.com/Amy AMYVARLEY.com. That is the site with all her products, or the products that she solicits on behalf of Dr. Cohn and what we've taken. I'll give you my cell phone number as well. You can certainly call me or message me.
Tabitha, you made an error. You made an error in the website.
Okay.
It's secretdirect.com/Amy Varley. You said that, right, but you said that it was secret.amyvarley.com.
Oh, sorry about that. Secret Direct.
So can you repeat what's the correct place for our listeners?
Yeah, it's www.SEACRET direct.com /Amy Varley. Varley.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. You can also message me or call me. My cell phone number is 214-364-0086. I'm happy to help anybody. Like I said, this is a passion that I have to share our story so that it provides hope to others.
And if
Fantastic.
any listeners would like to not only get a item from Tabitha, or Amy Varley, whichever, but to also be on the show and talk about your experience with the product, then they can email us at jawscoffeechat@gmail. That's JAWS coffeechat@gmail.com. And they can text 346-439-8393. If you or somebody you know that you can speak on behalf of and or spread the word to have tried Secret Direct products and want to talk about your experience, then that's where you can reach me, the owner and host, Jennifer A. Whitaker. And then you can go to Amy Varley's website or call or text the phone number that Tabitha gave you to inquire with her about the product.
Fantastic.
Or look them up on Amy's website.
Yes, fantastic. That is amazing information. This has been a great show. Thank you so much for joining us, Tabitha. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting me share my story and hopefully help others.
Absolutely. And blessings to your daughter.
Thank you.
God is good all the time.
And celebration of your daughter's
Absolutely.
freedom back to life.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's a real second life, what she's got.
Yep.
All right. Well, once again, thank you, Tabitha, for joining us here on Jaws Coffee Chat for Amy Varley Live. We're here every end of the month, Friday, the last Friday of the month. Our next podcast will be July 28th. So be sure to join us. Again, special thanks to Lawrence Wingate of Wingate TV, Marcus Hart of Transform You Media, Zach Clayton of the PAC channel, and Jay Stoyan of the Disability Channel, all for replaying our episodes on their platforms. One last time, Tabitha Sullivan, her number is 214-364-0086. You can also go to the website, www.secretdirect.com, secret.com, direct.com, /Amy Varley, AMYVARLEY, secretdirect.com /Amy Varley. And be sure to check us out for all our other podcasts throughout the week on any of our channels for YouTube or our social media pages, wherever you happen to find out about us. Be sure to spread the word, save, like, and direct, and save, like, and connect with us. There we go. That's what I was looking for.
We got issues.
I gotta love live TV. Until next time, we wish you a productive and enjoyable week. Take care, everybody. And we're so glad you could join us.